J.R.R. Tolkien was a man of people. He did his absolute best to accept all people, cultures, ways of life, but what he wouldn't have followed is current-day political wokeism. Simply being a good, empathetic person isn't the same as being woke, and some people would argue it's the exact opposite. Empathy, acceptance, compassion, these are basic things humans should care about, and over the years, there's been controversy surrounding Tolkien. Some people have raised absolutely ridiculous questions like, was he racist? Was he a bigot? Was he all of these terrible things? And I wanted to discuss this thread that was recently put out by theonering.net where they decided to call J.R.R. Tolkien woke because the site is so well known. You'd expect them to think before they make statements like this, and clearly they didn't. This has caused a lot of controversy in the Tolkien community. A lot of people agree, a lot of people disagree, so I really wanted to go through this thread that they made and really dissect it. So the first portion says, listen, we've been dealing with homophobic comments for decades and it's still wrong. Whatever toxic arguments are being said now about Lord of the Ring fandom and adaptions is the same trash that said Ian McKellen was the worst affront to Tolkien's legacy ever. #pride. Now, right off the bat, we can all tell they're making this thread because it is Pride Month. They're talking about Ian McKellen. They go on to talk about some of the other actors who are part of the LGBTQ community, but I believe they have gotten some form of homophobic comments over the years because they have been around for a very long time, and people online do say terrible things, but they do not provide any screenshots, links, evidence of the decades, quote-unquote, worth of hate they've seen and also received. There were terrible people who said Ian McKellen was bad for the franchise. They did definitely say that. He even talked about it in a blog many, many years ago. But if you're acknowledging those people, their voices only get louder. They only feel like you're giving them power. They can say whatever they want because they know it's going to get a rise out of you. No one should care about an actor's lifestyle if they can play their part well. It's as simple as that. I love Ian McKellen. He did a fucking fantastic job as Gandalf, and no one could ever be as good as he's been. He is Gandalf, and if you disagree, maybe you should get your eyes checked because he has done an amazing job playing this character. It says, respectful debate on Tolkien is always welcome, but homophobic, racist, misogynistic trash is always a case for banning. It's not what Tolkien fandom is, wants, or welcomes. We used to be able to ban in the era of message boards and IRC, but in the era of social media, the platforms can't keep toxicity out of our community. We can mute and block, but that's only for this account's feed. Twitter is not a community simply because it lacks anti-troll tools. Nasty people still show up in replies because their toxic friend subtweeted us. First off, One Ring, forums and IRC are still around, and yeah, they're not as popular anymore because of social media, but you can still use them if you think your community is going to thrive there. These types of close-knit communities aren't what Twitter was ever built to support, and if you're just figuring that out today and calling out today the toxicity that exists from every corner of Twitter, from every political spectrum, you're late to the game. If you can't take it, get off of Twitter and go back to message boards, IRC, things like that. On Twitter, you can still ignore and block people. If the toxicity is as bad as you're saying, you are enabling toxic and bigoted people by engaging with them. Don't acknowledge them. That's what I do. I've seen toxic people. I've had some of the most toxic stuff said to me, put in my comment sections, and I don't engage with it, nor do I think I ever will, because I don't think that they shouldn't be able to say it. Unfortunately, that's the price of free speech, and we've just got to accept that. And with free speech, I've also got the right to ignore it, and so do you. Now, going to the next comment is definitely the most controversial. It's one that they have had a lot of people upset about. They said, if you still think Ian McKellen is the worst and that Catholic Tolkien would have never approved, I beg you to read more of Tolkien's books and letters. He was woke stood against hate, embraced all cultures in life and in fiction. It's why his books are translated in every language. J.R.R. Tolkien was an empathetic, understanding, compassionate person. He wrote about rich, diverse races, characters, stories, and that's why he's one of the best storytellers of all time. His books weren't translated to every language because he was woke. They were because he wrote some of the best books to exist. He, yes, stood against hate. He embraced all cultures, and being a good person, being a good human being, doesn't mean you follow a certain set of politics. He died 40 plus years before woke became a thing. It is so disrespectful to him and his legacy to use terms like woke to describe him. He would have never followed current day political wokeism. There is a very big difference between opposing bigotry and being woke. Tolkien was a devout Catholic and his writing was inspired by his faith. It's argued he wouldn't celebrate something like Pride, but he wasn't a man who used his faith to tell you how to live your life or to be prejudiced against you. I love Tolkien. I love all of his work. I love all of his writing, and I think that he created some amazing stories, characters, lore. He created an amazing experience for us as readers, people who have watched the movies. However you've taken in Tolkien's work, you've probably had an amazing time at one point or another with it, but you can't just go around calling people these things because you want to push your agenda, because you want to say, oh, this writer would have been woke. That's not okay. It's disrespectful as hell. I just want to say, One Ring, this deserves more respect than you're giving it. This writer deserves more respect than you're giving him. So the One Ring continued on to say, if you think Ian McKellen gets a pass but whatever Amazon is doing is a disgrace to Tolkien, please think more on your personal bias before tweeting. Our block button is very active, and if you retweet/enable toxic voices in the name of free speech, you do not love Tolkien. This is such a disappointing thread to see, and so many people are so extremely upset over these comments, them walking around going, oh, he was woke. Yes, he did stand against hate and bigotry and all of these things, but that doesn't mean he would be woke in 2021. People are saying, have you read any of Tolkien's letters and writing outside of The Lord of the Ring? I would hardly consider him woke, confusing empathy with wokeism here. People scrolling down sharing quotes from him. People saying, I'm sure Tolkien would have been respectful, of someone like Ian McKellen, but you pay him a disservice by saying the Orthodox Catholic Englishman was woke. Dan Vasque said, you either don't know what the expression woke means or you're thinking of a different Tolkien. People are saying he wasn't woke, he was tolerant. There is a difference. Woke means focusing on agenda over story. He believed story to be of vital importance and the forefront of his work. So yeah, he wasn't woke. People like the One Ring are so disrespectful to the writers they say that they love, that they respect. You would think that they would be a little bit more respectful to Tolkien and his legacy, also his family, just not going around calling him all of these different things. But no, of course they do, because they're probably woke. They want to say, oh my goodness, look, I'm woke, my favorite writer was woke, look at all of this, we're all woke. No, he probably wouldn't have been woke. Being an accepting and compassionate person is not the same as modern-day political woke activism. That's like trying to draw a comparison between first and third wave feminism. They are not the same, and you don't have to be woke to believe in the things that he did. If you can't tell the difference between general acceptance and political wokeism, that's your folly. It's so disappointing to see people claim they know who people would have been today if they were alive. They know how they'd align themselves or act, and yeah, to an extent we can assume, but sometimes people take their assumptions way too far. The wise man Tolkien once said, there is some good in this world and it's worth fighting for. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you didn't, make sure to give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.